Hi, and welcome to drawingandpaintingforeveryone.com. Today I'm going to explain this guide that comes with both my beginning drawing book and my beginning painting book. I believe that you learn best by completing studies that have you practice and repeat basic skills. These studies help you become comfortable with the painting materials, but more importantly, these studies improve your ability to make subtle observations about the subject of your painting. To help you get started, I have you learn to use a grid. Many of the images in my books have grids printed directly on them. Unfortunately, you can't simply divide your photograph into sections, divide your canvas or paper into sections, and expect everything to work. For example, I have a photograph and I have a canvas. If I simply divide my photograph into 9 elements, divide my canvas into 9 elements, and the aspect ratios are not equal, my final painting will either be too wide or too narrow. To make this grid stuff a little easier, my guide has the same aspect ratio as the photographs in my books. To get started, place the guide in the center of your canvas sheet or drawing paper. Now simply trace the perimeter of the guide. Notice as I make my marks that I use the edge of my pencil rather than the point. The point of my pencil pushes graphite into the divots or pores of the canvas, making it difficult to erase the grid. And if I use the point of my pencil on a sheet of drawing paper, I'll score the paper and it'll be impossible to remove the grid. Using the edge of the graphite, lays the graphite on top of the canvas or paper. When the graphite is on the surface of the canvas or paper, it is much easier to remove. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm making very dark marks. I tried to use a light pencil and mark lightly, but I wasn't able to see the marks on the video. But I want you, when you're creating your grids, to mark very lightly and use the edge of your graphite. Now that I've traced down the edges of my guide, I'm going to make a small mark on the perimeter where each of these longer lines touch the edge of my guide. There are 2 of these small marks on each side. Now that these 8 marks are down, I'll use the straight edge of my guide to connect the marks on each side. Again, I'm using the edge of my graphite to make my mark. Once these 4 lines are drawn, the grid on your canvas or drawing paper should start to look like the printed image on the front of the guide. Now I'll replace the guide and make marks next to these small dashes around the outside of my guide. These dashes correspond to the midpoints of these line segments. Now I need to mark the middle or the center of each element, and I can use these marks to locate those centers. I'll line my guide up with the dashes that I just made, and make marks that correspond to each of the dashes printed on the side of my guide. With the guide lined up, I can also mark the centers of the vertical lines. On each of these horizontal line segments, I'll also locate the center. At the end of this process, the divisions on your drawing paper or on your canvas should look like the divisions on this guide that I've provided for you. So now you know what this little guide is for. It's simply a way to make working through some of my studies a little bit easier. Thanks, and I hope this helps.